Welcome everybody to the next NAAC conversation. My name is Ted Seelheimer from the University of Houston, here on behalf of the NAAC Rules Education Committee to talk about communicating with coaches. Here with us today is Amanda Knight from Barry University. She is the Associate AD and SWA at Barry, as well as Kelsey Solis, the Associate AD for Compliance at Texas State University. So welcome both you guys.
Thank you.
All right, well, Kelsey, we'll start off with you first. Just in general, can you tell us a little bit about your communication style and if you have any things that have changed since we're in the time of COVID with how you're communicating with coaches?
Yeah, I probably tend to over communicate on a normal day. I've obviously learned in the compliance world, document. So I always email. But I think in a normal world, you also have to accommodate to how coaches communicate with you and how other staff members communicate. So I'm always open to text messages, or maybe I'll respond back to a text and say, hey, can you send this to me in an email? Two-part, maybe for documentation, and then maybe so I don't forget to do whatever they're asking. And then sometimes it's walking down the hall and talking to the coaches or staff member and having that conversation. And I think probably that is the number one thing that is missing in this time is being able to go and just have a conversation about something. And even if you go back and document it later, that face-to-face, that builds that relationship even more so than what it was. And so I think that's what I really miss about this time, and trying to balance, then do you create a Zoom call for everything, right? Because I was saying when we got on here, that's what I've been doing today is call hopping, but sometimes it is easier. Not easier. It is more important to get on a call where I can see somebody's face, even if it's about a small topic, but that face-to-face contact is just so important right now when we're all sitting at our houses by ourselves.
Right.
And so that's one way where I've adjusted. I've really tried to, if I send out email updates, we have our head coaches Zoom calls weekly, but I've also tried to kind of create an assistant coaches, sorry, I talk a lot with my hands, an assistant coaches call minimum once a month, maybe twice a month, where I'm usually repeating the same information that I sent to them in an email, but it gives them an opportunity to ask questions and just to talk about it, where we would normally do that in the office. So that's one of the ways I've kind of changed, kept the same and then changed just to try to incorporate that face-to-face conversation.
Yeah. Well, Amanda, since walking down the hall isn't an option, how are you handling that there in Florida?
Really same as Kelsey, is the Zoom WebEx. I noticed myself being busier now than I did when I was actually in the office. So that's been a big adjustment. But my communication style is really based on the coach. Even though I'm very direct, there are times where I try to over communicate. I oversee the compliance area. So the assistant athletic director, she handles the day-to-day. So a lot of the communication is between she and I, and then giving her advice on how to communicate with specific coaches, whether or not it's better to just send an email, a phone call, or a Zoom. So like I said, I agree with Kelsey. It's the same exact thing. Even if we talk over the phone or on a Zoom call, I'm emailing them afterwards just to reiterate everything that we talked about. So they have a point of reference and I'm documenting that they were educated on, or I answered a specific question.
Right. So it sounds like you both have answered my next question in terms of the preferred method of communication is obviously in person or personal at some point, but obviously you have to follow that back up with the email or some other trail to make sure that you've covered yourself, but also given them something to refer back to. Maybe hold off on that second, third, fourth. Well, wait, what did you say about that? So.
Yeah.
No.
Well, and I think right now we're getting so much more of that, right? Like this isn't, it's heightened communication, right? So even if I'm emailing about athletic activities, right? And I would normally at this time be emailing about athletic activities, we're having to have even more conversation about athletic activities. So it's not as easy as me just emailing out, hey guys, getting ready for athletic activities, send me your summer calendars, right? It's, can we do them? Are they required? Are they, and so I think about specifically with our baseball team and the spring sports who we've had to work through, are people coming back? So it's, again, we're not even just, we're at the time where we're having normal conversations about renewals and non-renewals. we're now having heightened conversations about that. So something that was just normally a simple conversation or a reminder, or it's that time of year thing, now is causing more and more. I mean, I get text messages and love him, but my baseball coach every day, because we have to, every day we were having conversations about renewals and non-renewals,
right.
Whereas before it just wasn't that heightened for every topical area. And so I think I agree with Amanda that in the beginning of all this, I had like a plan of things that I was going to get done that I never get to touch. And I haven't touched that list because we're busier now just trying to manage the communication piece than we ever were. And I felt like we were busy before all of this. So I said that the other day, I had all this to-do list of all the back burner stuff, and that's not getting done because, again, you're just constantly trying to interpret things and communicate that to every single sport.
Right. Well, I guess on the heels of that, especially dealing with our spring sports and now with the summer activities, do you have any rules of thumb of how you approach holding back on sending something out right away? Obviously with Twitter and everything else, there's a lot of good reporting being done about what's happening with the committees and what's changing with the rules. But do you guys have any thoughts about when you would say, okay, I'm not going to send this update out because we're going to get clarification on it, or we're going to maybe get more information on it coming up soon?
So when we first get emails, I read it and make sure I understand it, and then I'll talk to our assistant AD for compliance, because even before COVID-19 and all of these we had a plan on how we would communicate certain things to our coaches. Like some stuff we did it because we knew it would just open a door for more questions, trying to figure out how to monitor it. For example, is this voluntary for Division II? What does that mean over the summer? Well, I was like, we're not telling our coaches. If they found out about it and they ask us, we'll answer the question, but I know everything else that she has to take care of and I have to take care of, and I know how much confusion that'll bring. So we usually wait, see what's going on, and then have a meeting and talk about it. Me specifically, I don't get into Twitter. I don't get into ESPN. I was just on the phone with my athletic director about it, and he was saying, oh, did you see how, the NCAA came out with this? And I'm like, that has nothing to do with us. That's Division I. And I have people texting me, asking me these questions. I'm like, relax. I had to tell one person, I said, if this is true, I'll get an email later today directly from the NCAA, and I will explain to you what that means for your position in Division II. So I don't get into the media hype, because I know that people nowadays, they don't like to read. They pay attention to one word and think it has to do with one specific thing, and then you actually read the article and it'll say Division I specifically, or specifically what it means as far as Division II. So yeah, after talking to my assistant athletic director and thinking about how is this going to affect the student athletes dealing with COVID and what does this mean for her day-to-day operations, that's how we decide how soon, or if we even talk to our coaches about that.
Right. Good call. I guess we were talking about talking with your other staff member, but also then you're talking with your senior level administrators. How are you guys approaching issues that require other staff members to talk about compliance issues? So obviously, if you're dealing with voluntary activities or opening back up, there's the NCAA side, but then there's also the practical university side. How are you guys making sure that the right compliance information is communicated when it's coming from a non-compliance person?
Yeah, that's been a challenge. I think also knowing when to step back and wait, right? And that kind of goes to what Amanda was talking about with when to release information, for example, about summer camps. I could give all the information related to compliance and NCAA and Sunbelt Conference rules right now to our coaches, but at the end of the day, we were waiting on an institutional decision that ended up overriding anything I had to say. And so I think for me, and anybody who knows me personally, it's sometimes hard to do, is like taking a step back and waiting to see if you need to be the one to speak or if that's coming from someone else. And then I think my biggest thing is just it adds more to our plate, but being a part of every conversation that's going on right now, having ears in those conversations, whether it's me or somebody on my staff or my boss does a really good job of giving me information on committees she's on, but so that I can at least say, okay, well, here's the compliance side. And then whoever is directing that communication or information that's going out can differentiate. Here's NCA information, compliance information, and here's what we're doing as an institution. Do those conflict? And so we have an athletics work group right now that's working on a return to campus for some of our student athletes. And that's kind of what we've been working on. And I just try to keep them as updated as possible on the compliance side of things. And again, I'm not the primary communicator from that group. So I just try to make sure they have the most updated information. Again, today's a hot day, right? We're waiting on a council decision this afternoon. And so as soon as I get that, I try to get that to them so that whatever other decisions are coming, that's always a factor.
For me, I am part of our senior administrative team, so it's kind of good because I used to be the assistant AD for compliance, so I used to do day-to-day compliance. So a lot of the times I'm able to answer questions that they may have across campus, but when I can't or if I feel it necessary, I'll have our assistant AD for compliance on the call. I think it's important to bring those voices together so it's no confusion and there's no misunderstanding. We also have a working group, and we've communicated so much more with our healthcare administrator and head athletic trainer. So any call that I may have that his position or his thoughts that deal with how to return to athletics can combine with compliance, we're on a call together. Mm-hmm. Assistant AD for compliance and head athletic trainer, we do the same thing with academics. So I make sure if I'm holding the meeting, I include everyone, so I'm not having to be the middleman and give the wrong information, or if they have questions, the person who is the best expert to answer those questions can answer it right away. So that's how I try to conduct the meetings. Or if she's not there, assistant AD for compliance, I make sure I talk to her right after a meeting to say, hey, here's some things that came up. Mm-hmm. I think I kind of handle it, but I just wanted you to be aware in case you get questions in the future.
Right. Well, obviously communicating in our jobs has always been basically the bread and butter of what we do. And now it's kind of the only thing we can do since monitoring is a whole other topic that we may cover in another conversation. But appreciate both of you guys sharing your time and perspectives on how to make sure that we're getting the best information out to our coaches as possible. So
yeah. Hey Ted, I do have one more thing to add. I want for our profession to make sure that you're giving yourself some grace. I think I've had to pep talk myself sometimes, and honestly, some of our we have a group me with our compliance administrators in our conference, and sometimes this all can be overwhelming, and I have sent emails out and been like, oh man, I did not read the NCAA email right and sent the wrong information, and just trying to manage all of this, and so I think it's just really important to for our community to make sure that like everybody knows we're all in the same boat here, mm-hmm. And to just really give yourself some grace on managing that and managing compliance in this crazy time. I think that's key.
Yep. No, I definitely appreciate that.
And to piggyback off for Kelsey, I also think it's important that we take care of ourselves. We constantly talk about the mental health of our student athlete, and that's been, such a big conversation in CAA, but this is the time, like this isn't just a financial crisis or athletic crisis. This could be potentially a mental health crisis. So as individuals, we have to take care of ourselves and step away sometimes. Sometimes those text messages or emails can wait before, you answer. Just take your weekends. Our home is now our office, so you don't have a place to go. So take your weekends. Monday's a holiday. Let it be a real holiday. So that's something that we have to try to make sure we make that a priority.
Awesome. Well, if you have any other recipes or cocktails that you want to share with the group, then we can make sure it's a good holiday here. So
yes.
All right. Well, again, thank you guys both so much for your time and all the great work that you're doing. Thanks everyone for taking part in this next conversation. Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks.